Yes, Mr. Millett.
Mr. Chairman, I now call Control Room Officer Christine Howson, please.
Good. Thank you very much.
Please repeat after me. I do solemnly, sincerely and truly
I do solemnly, sincerely and truly
declare and affirm
that
the evidence I shall give
the evidence I shall give
shall be the truth,
shall be the truth,
the whole truth,
the whole truth,
and nothing but the truth.
and nothing but the truth.
Very good. Thank you very much. Yes, Mr. Millett.
Good afternoon, Ms. Howson.
Hi.
Can I ask you please to give the Chairman your full name?
Christine Ann Howson.
I'm going to start by thanking you very much for coming here today and giving evidence to the inquiry and assisting us with our investigations. We very much appreciate it. It's sometimes difficult for witnesses to come and relive the events of that night. And so if at any time you feel you need a break, you need only indicate and we can take a break.
Okay.
We try and sit for no more than an hour. We won't sit and ask questions for more than an hour, but if you need a break before that, we can take a break earlier. Sometimes my questions are not as short and simple as they're supposed to be, so if you want me to ask the question in a different way or to repeat it, I'm very happy to do so.
Okay.
Okay. Now, you've given a witness statement to the Metropolitan Police dated the 27th of October 2017, and that is at MET *007763. It should appear on the monitor on the desk to your right or on the screen behind you. It's also in a paper form, in a blue file in front of you if you wish to use that. It's a matter for you. Do you recognise that as your witness statement you gave to the police last year?
Yep, I do, yeah.
You do. Have you read it recently?
I have, yeah.
And can you confirm that its contents are true?
I can, yeah.
You can. Now, I want to turn to your role in the LFB and your training. I think it's right that you've worked for the LFB since 2004. Is that right?
That's correct, yeah.
In your role as a control room operator, yes? Yes. When you, or after you joined and had your initial training, did you receive any refresher or additional training after that time?
Since the initial training?
Yes.
Yeah, over the years I've had additional training.
When was the most recent additional training prior to June 2017?
It would have been in January 2017.
Can you tell us what that training involved?
That was FSG training with the command units.
I don't know whether you were present or heard Yvonne Adams giving evidence. She explained that there was a training session involving a command unit. Was that the same training?
It's the same one, yeah, I was on the same training session.
You were on the same training. Apart from that training session, did your training prior to the fire at Grenfell Tower involve training or familiarisation with Policy 539, emergency call management?
Not specifically emergency call management. I've had other FSG training sessions.
Right.
2016, 2014. But
in those sessions, was there any role play? Did actors play the role of callers?
no, the only time we did any role play was the one with the command units.
Command unit, okay. At those sessions, did the training involve FSGs from high-rise residential blocks?
We did a session, I think it must have been 2014. Again, a command unit did come to control.
Right.
We didn't do any scenarios, but we kind of explained what we do in a high-rise, and they kind of explained what they do.
Right.
So there was just an exchange of information, really.
Right. Did it involve an exchange of information about what would happen in the control room if multiple FSGs were in play at the same time, underway at the same time?
Not specifically multiple FSGs. They always really just assumed there would be one or a few,
right?
Not multiple ones.
Right. You say a few, how many?
Maybe 2 or 3.
Right. Was any of your training, 2014 or 16, taking that time frame, focused on matters arising or lessons learnt from the Lakanal House fire in 2009?
Not specifically. I think there were changes. There was introduction of the form after Lacanau.
When you say the form, is that the control information form?
Yes, yeah, for FSG calls
Right.
and the use of those.
Did you use those in the control room?
I've not used them, no.
Did you ever observe them being used in the control room in response to an FSG call?
No,
Right. So they were introduced but never used?
I personally have not used them.
Okay. Now, in your statement, at page 3, if I can ask you to turn to that, please, in the second paragraph, you say, 4 lines down from the start of that paragraph, I have dealt with quite a few of these calls over the years, and you're referring to FSG calls,
Yeah.
but they are quite rare. I just want to get a feel for the experience that you had of those calls. First of all, were any of the calls, FSG calls, that you handled over the years, high-rise calls?
Not that I can remember,
Right.
no.
Did any of those incidents involve multiple FSG calls?
No.
Doing the best you can to recall, how many FSG calls prior to the night of Grenfell do you think you handled?
Maybe 20?
20.
Yeah.
Right. Can I ask you to look at policy 539? That's tab 3 of our policies bundle, please. And turn in that to appendix 3 on page 16. Just to be clear,
You'll get it blown up on the screen. No one's expecting you to read that.
no, just to be clear, if you could please be shown the first page. Well, this will do. Appendix 3, Fire Survival Guidance. Are you familiar with this, what we see on the screen? Appendix 3 to Policy 539, Emergency Call Management.
Yeah, I am familiar with the fire survival guidance.
Right. Now, I just want to ask you 1 or 2 questions about this. First of all, if you look on this page at the 4th paragraph, well, let's start with the 3rd. Brigade control advised callers to get out and stay out. However, if a call is received from a high-rise building where fire, heat and smoke are not affecting the caller, LFB would advise that, and then here's the advice. You are usually safest to remain in your premises unless affected by fire, heat or smoke. If the situation changes, you should leave your premises and dial 999 if you need further assistance. And then it goes on to tell you what should happen if the caller should be unable to escape. Now, just looking at that paragraph that we've just looked at above that, you are usually safest to remain in your premises. Does that accord with your understanding of the stay put policy?
Yes.
Okay. When you are looking at it, it says you are usually safest to remain in your premises unless affected by fire, heat or smoke. Can you explain what information you would use as a control room officer to make the assessment as to whether a caller's premises are affected by fire, heat or smoke?
Well, I would try to ascertain if the fire was actually in their flat. If it was in their flat, then I would give them advice on getting out of the flat. If it's not, I would... Thank you. If it's not, I would work on a premise that they were safer where they were.
That's fire. What about smoke?
Smoke, well, we work to keep the smoke out of their flat, to keep them safe until they're rescued.
Right. If smoke was coming into a caller's flat, would you tell them to stay in their premises?
If it was coming into the flat, my advice would be, I would give them advice to stop the smoke coming into their flat.
Right. So at the point at which, let me be clear about this, at the point at which a caller tells you that smoke is coming in, would you say that they are affected by fire, heat or smoke?
If smoke is coming in from outside?
Yes, either through the door of their flat or through the window of their flat.
No, at that point I wouldn't. I would be advising them on what to do to stop the smoke coming in.
Okay. Would you still think that they were safest to remain in their flat?
Yes.
So when you go back to the wording of the advice, which says you are usually safest to remain in your premises unless affected by fire, heat or smoke, you would essentially delete smoke and say it's safest to remain unless affected by fire or heat.
Not ignore smoke, but I would assume that the smoke was coming, if the fire wasn't in their flat, I would assume that the smoke was coming into their flat from outside. So I would be doing everything to assure that they stop that.
Right. Would you not start, though, to explore with the caller whether they could safely leave to get away from the smoke that was coming into their flat?
Initially, no, I wouldn't.
You wouldn't?
Would, no. If the fire wasn't in their flat.
Right.
It depended. If it was obviously the first call, then yes, I would. But if we are dealing with a call already in the building, then no, I would try to keep them safe in their flat, awaiting rescue.
Right.
That is what I would do.
So is this right, that for you, the big difference is fire?
Yes.
Right. And at that point, is this right, your understanding is that it's at that point, but not before fire, that you start to explore means of exit?
Yes.
Now, moving on to fire survival guidance as set out in this appendix, you, in your statement, if I can take you back to that, you say on page 3 in the second paragraph, which we're still on, you say, some calls may become fire survival guidance calls, which I will now talk about in more depth. In summary, if there is a fire and a person cannot leave a property because of that fire, the procedure is to make it a fire survival guidance call. This creates a new procedure from a control room officer's perspective. Now, and then you go on to say what that is. And you say, I would raise my hand and inform a supervisor who may come to me or listen in on the call. I would take details from the caller, asking if they can get out, and other questions to establish the circumstances and whereabouts. Now, you say there in your statement, if there is a fire and a person cannot leave because of that fire, it's an FSG call. How do you go about establishing whether a person cannot leave a property once there is a fire?
Well, just by asking them if they can leave or not.
You ask them and they say, I can't leave. Do you take it at face value, or do you say, well, hold on, let's just explore the exit routes together. Tell me what's happening outside your flat. Do you do that, or do you just take it at face value?
No, I would ask them why they can't leave.
Right. How far do you push it?
No, I would just accept that they can't leave.
Right. So who is the judge of whether or not they can leave? Do you leave it to the caller, or do you bring your judgment and experience to bear on that question?
No, I mean, I would... No, the caller's judgment.
Yes.
Because I'm not there, I don't know.
So
so I have to be guided
right.
by what the caller's telling me. I can't tell the caller what's happening out in their flat.
Looking, if I can take you then to another policy, which is FSG, Policy 790, which we've got at tab 5 of our policy bundle. Can I ask you, please, first of all, to look at the first page of that so we can just make sure you're familiar with it. This is Policy 790, Fire Survival Guidance Calls, reviewed as current at April 2014. And if you turn, please, to page 2 of that, you can see Section 4, Prioritising Calls. 4.1, occasionally control receives multiple FSGs at an incident. All FSGs received by control are treated with the same level of urgency. However, in certain circumstances, the officer in charge of control may direct call handlers to terminate a call to answer another. Is that something you're familiar with ever having done? Sorry, that's a rather vague question. Let me break it down. Are you, in your experience, have you ever been in a situation where the control room has received multiple FSGs?
I have. I've not personally been told to terminate a call,
Right.
but I have been in the control room where someone's been told, like, to end a call.
What were the can you tell us what the circumstances of
I
that
can't
were?
remember specifically, but I think we had we had calls coming in that
Right.
needed to be taken,
Right.
and I can only assume that they were deemed safe. The callers were deemed to be in a safe position, and that other calls needed to be taken.
Do you remember that incident?
No, I can't remember.
Do you remember when it might have been?
No, it was a long time ago.
Long time ago.
It's the only time I can really remember
Right.
an incident like that prior to, like, Grenfell.
Was it prior to Lacknell House, do you think? 2009.
Oh, yeah, I think it probably would have been.
Was it a high-rise residential block?
I can't remember.
Okay.
But I only remember it because it was unusual for someone to be told to end a call.
Right. Now, looking at same page, paragraph 5.1, information transfer to the incident, what would be the usual method in your experience that you would adopt for passing information from a fire survival guidance call to the incident ground?
In a normal course of events, it would be like a service request form.
Right.
Via the radio.
And so you would make that on vision, so the officer could then radio, the radio officer
Radio
could radio
operator
to
could
the
send
ground.
it, yeah.
Right. So it would be radio by the radio officer.
Yeah.
Right. You wouldn't call the incident ground yourself?
Mate, no.
Okay. Unless you were on the radio.
Yeah, just a radio operator.
Right. Okay. Now, can I ask you to turn the page, please, to paragraph 5.5 in this policy? And it says, control will attempt to gather all the information on the control information form, which we've discussed, and relay this information to the incident as and when it becomes available. Then you see underneath that a list of bullet points which have to be, which are the subject of that information. In your experience, is it possible to obtain all of that information from callers?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, is it something that you would usually do, go through each and every head of information asking for that detail?
Yeah, you would attempt to get all of that information.
You would?
You know, not every situation you would be able to get all of it, but, you know, you would attempt to get that.
Now, this information is in a paragraph, in a policy, the title of which is Fire Survival Guidance. My question is, do you, as a control room officer, normally try and get all that information for all calls where a person is calling from a high-rise building, or only those which are fire survival guidance, in other words, where they're trapped and can't get out? And in your way of thinking, there is a fire.
No, I think all of that information would only be pertinent really to a fire survival call.
Right. So is this right, that it's not until it becomes a fire survival guidance call in your mind that you start asking for this specific information?
Yeah, I mean, there's information there that you would ask for any type of call.
Right.
But yeah, fire survival, you would be looking to, get most of that information, or as much information as you could really, anything that's going to help.
Yeah. I mean, looking at number of flat house, was that information that you would ask for only on a fire survival guidance call or for any call?
Any call.
Right. What about the next one? Number of persons, fire survival guidance or any call?
Not number of persons. I mean, if there was a fire, you would ask, if anyone's inside the building, or if they believe anyone's inside or might be inside.
Right. So just looking at this list, what information wouldn't you ask for if the call was not or not yet a fire survival guidance call?
Well, location of the caller within the premises, an access point. If it wasn't a fire survival, you wouldn't need that.
Right.
Condition of the location, you would be looking for that information on any call. proximity to fire, if known, presumably that's the person you're speaking to. If it's not fire survival, you may or may not be looking for that information. Yeah, that'd be it really.
Right. So is this right, that in a call that has not, in your mind, yet become a fire survival guidance call, you would only ask for the number of flat or the house, and is this right, sometimes the condition of their location?
Yeah, I mean, if it's not a fire survival, if it's a fire call,
Yes.
we're basically looking for an address and the type of incident it is.
Right.
In order to mobilise.
Okay. Does that mean that where the caller is calling from a flat that has got smoke coming in, but is not in your mind a fire survival guidance call, you wouldn't seek to establish things like, for example, proximity to fire if known, latest device, number of persons involved?
Well, if they've got smoke coming in, are you speaking specifically about a high-rise or just...
Yes,
yeah.
I am. Yes.
Yeah. So if they've got smoke coming in, no, I would collect more information to pass to the crews on scene.
Right. So,
let them know that there are people there,
right,
so that they can then go and make sure that they're okay in the flat.
right. What if it was a smoke call, if I can put it that way,
Yeah.
no fire yet, smoke coming into the flat, what information would you, in that list, think it was important to gather?
Yeah, well, I think probably, most of it really.
Right. Okay. So I'm just trying to get a feel for where the line is drawn when it's not an FSG call. What information you would ask for?
It's when it comes to high rise, there is it is different because of the stay put policy. It's I do deal with it differently, because if they're not directly affected by the fire, they're within the building and not affected by the fire. My experience and the training that I've had, I am working on the assumption that they are in a safe place.
Right.
I mean, obviously, Grenfell's changed that, but the assumption would always be, and in my experience, has always turned out to be, that they are safe if they're not directly affected by the fire.
I see.
So I would take the information, make the crews aware that someone is in that flat, they're concerned about the situation, and they need to be visited and reassured. But my assumption would be that they are in a safe place.
Is that so even if there's smoke coming into their flat?
Yeah, I mean, it does happen. I mean, we get fires and they'll be sort of in the chute or something, and someone leaves the chute open, and it creates a lot of smoke in a communal area. Obviously, that's not what happened in this instance, but that's what can happen, and it can create a lot of smoke. There's no immediate danger. We might know that it is actually the chute that's alight, which is protected, the chute is protected. And so we just need to make sure that they keep themselves safe, keep the smoke out, and that it will be dealt with, and they are in a safe place.
Right. Does that mean that in that kind of call you wouldn't take, for example, details like the number of persons in the flat, or whether there are any disabilities, or the age of the occupants?
It would depend. I mean, it depends how much information we've already got. If I knew that was the situation that I've just explained, I wouldn't necessarily take any more information than that, other than that there was someone there who was concerned. If I wasn't sure what was going on, then obviously I would take more information. Just try and gauge it on what information we had and what was going on.
To take an example, which we may or may not come to, but supposing you had a caller who was complaining about smoke coming in, it wasn't an FSG call in your mind, you wouldn't know unless you asked them whether, for example, they had some kind of bronchial or respiratory problem like asthma or some other difficulty.
No,
So
I wouldn't know unless I asked them.
Would you ask them for that information?
No, not initially, no.
Why is that?
I mean, I would ask them, if they were coughing, I would ask them why they were coughing, what was happening, you know, what was causing them to cough, things like that. But if they were, you know, if they were just talking normally,
Right.
it just depends on how they're reacting, really.
Right. And what about mobility difficulties? Was that sort of information that you would seek to get from them if this call wasn't a full-blown fire survival guidance call?
Not if it wasn't an FSG call, no.
Right. What about where it had become a full-blown fire survival guidance call? So in your mind, fire affecting the flat, they need to leave. Would you ask it that, in that situation?
Yeah, I mean, you know, start questioning about, you know, are you able to leave? No. If not, why? You know, people have got mobility issues. They do tend to tell you.
Now, turning to the night of the fire, we know you were based in the Stratford control room, and you say in your statement, we don't need to go to it, that it's a small room,
Yeah.
probably better because you can hear and know what's going on, but you also say it gets very noisy,
Yeah.
which can make it difficult to hear callers. First of all, can you tell us, by reference to a photograph where you were sitting, can the witness please be shown LFB *000 4790, page 175? Ms. Howson, can you identify where you were sitting?
Oh, sorry.
There.
Yeah.
There.
Yeah.
And I see, so you're sitting on the left-hand chair.
Yeah.
Just remind me, if nobody else, who was sitting in the right-hand chair on that screen?
No one.
So that was empty, was it?
That was empty, yeah.
So did you have a clear line of sight to your right, to Yvonne Adams and Pam Jones?
I did, yeah.
Very good. Okay. And just to remind me again, who was immediately opposite you, sitting in the CRO chairs?
Sarah.
Sarah Russell. Anybody else?
I think it was Sarah, I think it was Angie, and then Sharon.
Yes. Now, when you say in your statement that Stratford is better because you can hear each other, does that mean that you can hear the advice being given by other CROs?
Yeah, you've got an awareness. We've got more of an awareness
Right.
of the type of calls that are coming in.
Right. Could you hear in detail what the CROs were saying to callers? Would you
I could
listen
hear
out for that?
I could hear the address,
Right.
so I knew we were getting multiple calls to the same address.
You speak of the noise in the control room, which can make it difficult to hear callers. Did you find during the incident that you did have difficulty hearing the callers because of the noise in the control room?
As things escalated, yeah, it did get
Right.
very noisy.
Okay, but it did get noisy, but did you find that it obscured your hearing of what the callers were telling you?
It became more difficult to hear. I mean, this is like the corner of the room.
Yeah.
So if I was struggling, I stood up and I walked back into the corner of the room. Just
Right.
to give myself, you know, just a bit of space between me and the room, really.
Okay, with your headset on?
Yeah, with the headset on, yeah. Yeah.
Now, you, in your witness statement, page 4, in the second paragraph, you refer to the make-ups. There, you say, the fifth line down, 8, 10, 12, 20 pumps. And we've got time marks for each of these, and particularly for make pumps 20 of 1:29:46. I can show you that if you need to. And then, but 25 pumps at 1:31:48, so about 2 minutes later. Bringing you forward to that point in the night, did the speed of these make-ups give you any information about the way the fire was behaving?
Yeah.
What did you think?
Well, well, I said there, you know, I knew it was a massive fire.
Yeah.
It was like a major fire.
Major fire. Did you get any impression of where in the building it was moving, spreading?
No, not really. I didn't know how it was progressing, but it's unusual. 20 pumps is unusual.
Yeah.
And for it to go 20, you know you're dealing with something quite extraordinary, really.
By that stage, had it occurred to you, or did you think that the fire was moving up the building at speed, affecting the floors higher up than the initial floor?
Well, I mean, prior to that, I'd taken a couple of calls from people on the upper floors saying that there was like smoke outside their windows.
Yes.
Which I just couldn't get my head around, really, because we knew the fire was on the lower levels, and for the smoke to still be outside people's windows on that floor, I couldn't understand what was happening to the fire, really.
Can we go then to the control room report, please? At page 25. That's LFB quadruple 04790. And at page 25, it's the top of the page. You can see that you take a call from a male caller who's on his balcony in West 2, and he can see a whole block of flats on fire near Westfield. CRO Housen checks the individual's postcode and is satisfied that the caller is in close enough proximity to Grenfell for it to be the same incident. Mm. Now, at that stage, you're told, and you verify, it's the whole block of flats on fire, and this is 1:30. Did that give you information from which you could now tell that the fire had moved substantially beyond the compartment of origin?
Yeah, it did, but I never really, until I actually saw a picture of the building, I had no understanding of what was going on there.
Right.
I couldn't, I just couldn't envisage what was actually happening there.
Would it have helped to have the television or heli-telly downlink in front of you so you could see what was going on?
I don't know whether it would have helped or not, really. I mean, it was a shock to see it.
Hmm. That was later in the night?
Yeah.
Yeah. When this caller tells you the whole block of flats on fire, did you believe him, or did you treat it with scepticism?
I think at that point, I didn't disbelieve him. I thought that we was dealing with something, obviously, I thought we was dealing with a very serious fire.
Yes.
But, as I say, until I got the visual, I didn't realise quite how bad it was.
And there's a call at 1:37, if you go forward to page 35, that you take 1:37:09, third of the way down the page. You take a call from a female caller who states that she can see a massive fire in a tower and people may jump out. Caller states they're not in the building but can hear people screaming for help. CRO Housen states there are 10 fire engines there and more en route. In fact, by that stage, the makeup was 25. Had you not heard or seen that message in the room or on the vision log?
Not sure we're looking at the passage that you've been reading, Mr. Millett.
We should be.
Well,
It's 01:37:09.
Oh, right, okay.
We had the previous one. Don't worry.
I'm sorry,
Just read it through to yourself on the screen.
Yeah, no.
CRO Housen takes a call from a female caller who states she can see a massive fire in a tower and people may jump out. Caller states they're not in the building but can hear people screaming for help.
Yes, 10
That one.
fire engines there and more
Yeah.
en route. Yeah.
Yes. I see. And more en route. So you had heard that it was 25 by this stage?
Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah.
Now, at that point, you'd had the call earlier at 1:30 and 14, whole block of flats on fire. Now you're hearing a call that there's a massive fire and people
Yeah.
may jump out. By this stage, had you realised that people were, as it were, exaggerating? This was a serious whole block fire.
Yeah, absolutely. On the other hand, I think up until that night, I truly believe that 20 appliances could deal with anything.
Right.
I really did. So, I was confident that once we had 20 machines there, 100 firefighters, in my mind, I'm thinking, whatever it is, we can, we can deal with it.
Now, I'm going to ask you about certain calls that you took prior to the change in stay put advice. First of all, call from the 23rd floor, flat 201, and we could pick this up at the control room report, page 27, if you can just go back. This is at 1:32:10, top of the page. CRO Housen takes a call from what sounds like a child who says they're in the top floor flat. Now, I just want to show you the transcript of that if I can. This is LFB 50667. And we can see the time of this call from the top line next to event. Second group of numbers from the right, 013210, so 1:32:10. And the call starts on that first page underneath that. Hello, there's a big fire at Grenfell Tower. And then turning the page to, if we go to page, on page 1, you can see that the person says towards the bottom of the page, in answer to your question, what flat are you in? Caller, we're at the top floor. Top, right, what number? What's your door number? Over the next page, my actual door number is 155, but I'm at someone else's house. Now you know that they're at the top. And then on page 3, if you turn to that, you can see that the caller tells you, after there's a lot of smoke coming in the middle of the page there, you ask, okay, well, what I want you to do, right, the fire's not in your flat, is it? No, but I can see it, and the window's already burning up. So you're told the window is burning up. And you say, okay, all right, listen, I want you to try and stop that smoke coming into the flat. At that stage, given that you were told that the window was burning, was it not a fire survival guidance call? And this person was affected by fire?
Yeah, it was.
Now, we don't see you then saying, you need to leave, can we assess the means of exit? Is there a reason why that is?
Well, I still believed at that point that if I could keep them safe where they were, that we would rescue them.
And then, if you turn to page 4, 2/3 of the way down that page, where there's after the discussion about speaking to an adult, caller says hello, and then you say hello, hi, I've just been speaking to him, I don't know if that's one of your children, and the caller then says, oh my God, the fire is coming through. And I know, listen, I'm just trying to explain, you're on the top floor, are you? No, hang on, inaudible. The smoke's coming through the window. And then the call goes on to page 5, and you say, don't let the smoke in, shut all the windows, the fire's below you, I take it, is it? Yeah. And then there's no more answer, and the call finishes. By the end of this call, were you completely confident that the fire had not actually come into the flat and it was just smoke? I say just, but as opposed to fire?
Yeah.
Given that you were told that the fire was coming in the window by the caller, or fire was coming through, why were you so confident that it was only smoke and not fire?
I don't know. I mean, it was inconceivable that they're on the top floor and it would be on fire.
We know from earlier calls that you had been told that on 2 occasions, before this call, 127 and 130, certainly one occasion, to be fair to you, one occasion, 130, that the whole block of flats was on fire, and you'd heard the make-ups. Why was it inconceivable that a flat on the top floor was on fire?
So I just couldn't get my head around it. Just couldn't.
Right.
I
Right.
I still felt at that time, we were doing rescues, I still felt at that time, if I could keep them safe where they were and get the firefighters to them, that was their best option. I think there was a point where the thought of getting them out of their flats into I don't know what just seemed too dangerous.
Right. Were you in a position to assess at that stage whether the exits really were so dangerous that you couldn't encourage or advise them to leave?
Well, I mean, looking at that, I don't think I even asked.
No. Is there a reason why not?
No, there's no reason. We was in the process of doing rescues.
Right.
I was just trying to keep them away, safe in their flat until they were rescued.
Is one reason, perhaps, you tell me, that this wasn't a fire case, it was a smoke case, and in your mind, a smoke case isn't an FSG call?
Yeah, I think that's probably what my mindset was up until that point.
Okay. Now, do you remember, and maybe you don't, but at the same time your colleague Sarah Russell was on the phone to a young girl. Do you remember her being on the call at that time?
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you get any information, or did you hear any information that Sarah was picking up which would enable you to assist on this call?
I didn't hear any of the call, but I was facing Sarah, and she was quite new in the job, and I can remember looking up and looking at her, and she looked distressed. She wasn't really sort of saying too much. I just nodded.
Right.
Said to her,
You didn't?
No, I mean I was on calls at the time.
You didn't put 2 and 2 together with each other and work out that you were on the call, on different calls to callers from the same flat? No.
No, I didn't know that.
Different flat, different floor if I can. Flat 194, 22nd floor. Just Tony Disson. Control room report, page 59. And I don't think there's a need to see the transcript because we get everything we need from the control report summary. Page 59. This call is at 2 o'clock and 33 seconds. CRO Howson, I'll read it all to you. CRO Howson takes a call from a male caller who says he's been waiting 15 minutes and his flat is getting worse. The caller explains that it is black in the flat and he cannot see anything. He then advises CRO Howson that he's a pensioner, and she checks that he is preventing smoke from getting into the flat, which the caller states that he is. CRO Howson asks if there is another room in the flat which is less smoky, and the caller suggests that the front room is probably the best one. CRO Howson tells him to sit on the floor as the air will be cleaner, and asks for the flat number, which the caller gives. This as 194 on the 22nd floor. A smoke alarm is audible in the background. CRO Howson confirms the brigade will be there as soon as they can. The caller sounds similar, very similar, to an earlier call taken by CRO Fox. Now, he told you, as we can see, that his flat was worse. It is black. Having regard to the policy we looked at, 539, did you think that this caller was now affected by fire or smoke? Or was this just a smoke case, as we've discovered from this, and therefore he wasn't affected by fire?
No, I didn't think he was affected by fire. I thought he was affected by smoke.
Did you consider whether you should be exploring with him whether he could safely leave?
No.
Is there a reason why not?
Again, because I felt he was in the safest place.
Right. And is that because he wasn't affected by fire?
Yes.
Right. And this may begin to become a familiar theme.
No.
Ms. Howson, so forgive
sure,
me.
yeah.
Next one is flat 192, 22nd floor. There are a number of calls. I'll take these as quickly as I can. The first one is at 2:10:31. This is Control Room Report 69, and the transcript is LFB 50345. I'd like to look at that transcript with you if I can. We can see the first page of it timed at 02:10:31. You can see that from the column, the right-hand bunch of numbers first from the right. And if you look at the start of the call, fire brigade, yeah, hi, fire brigade, yeah, there is fire. Hello, yeah, there is fire in our kitchen. See that? And then you go on to get the flat number and floor from them over the bottom of the second page and to the top of the third page. And then on the fourth page, page 4, a third of the way down, you say, right, so when you say a fire, was it the cooker or something? Caller, several inaudible words, there is already fire, something, get down here, something, get down, get down, get down. And then towards the bottom of the page, you say, listen, we're dealing with a fire on the 4th floor, okay? Is the smoke? And then the caller says, there's fire on the 22nd floor. On the 22nd floor in your something. Kitchen, yeah? Yes, okay, 22nd floor. So there's a fire in the kitchen. So you've established at this point in the call that the flat is on fire. Do you know why you told the caller that the fire was only on the 4th floor at that stage?
I don't know. I think I still didn't appreciate that the fire was affecting flats that high up in the building.
We've seen a call earlier, the one at 132, just a moment ago, the one from flat 201, top floor, that the window was burning, and you've been told that the whole building was on fire. I just want to know really why you were still thinking that the fire was on the 4th floor.
Because that's where the original fire was, and everything. The fire, it didn't do what other fires do. It shouldn't have happened. The fire shouldn't have been there. And I think I was still couldn't get my head round what was happening on the building, within the building. And I was still working, trying to keep people safe.
Now,
to be rescued, and I still felt at that point that was the safest place for them, and I was just trying to keep them away from the worst of it and keep them safe in their flats.
if you go on, we've seen what we've said, what is said at page 4, cooker, fire in the kitchen. We look at page 5, a third of the way down, you now say, flat 192, so there's a fire in the kitchen. We then see onto page 9, if we look forward. Page 8 we can see as we pass it, it's confirmed there's a fire in the kitchen. At page 9 you say, at the top of the page, all right, well, listen, I mean, at the moment we're advising people to stay in their flats, but if you've got a fire in your flat, it's your decision. You may have to try and get out, okay. How near are you to the stairwell? No reply. How near are you to the stairs? And then there's discussion about that, and then towards the bottom of the page, yeah, we are trapped. And you talk about children, and the call essentially ends there, page 10, without much further information. Now, my question is, you know now there's a fire in the flat. You've suggested to them that they should leave, the advice on page 9, but you say to them, it's your decision, you may have to try and get out okay. Can I just ask you, why didn't you tell them, well, given that you've got a fire in your flat, you need to leave, and make it very clear they had to leave? Can you help me with why you didn't do that? No. We also see that you don't explore with them how safe it is for them to leave, like how smoke-logged the lobbies or stair is. Is there a reason why you didn't do that?
No, I mean, at the time, we were still following, like, the stay put policy.
Right. As you understood it?
Yeah, as I understood it.
Right. Now, there's a second call, and this is transcript LFB 50351. A few minutes later, this is 2:18 and 6 seconds, second page of which establishes same flat, 192, 22nd floor. And then on page 3, very much the same thing, smoke and fire. Fire in the kitchen again, as you can see in the middle of the page. And then the top of page 4, again, you'll have to try and make your way to somewhere safe if the fire is in your flat, to the stairwell. And then you give them some advice in the middle of that page. You say, to the stairwell, say wherever the smoke is less heavy, if you can take some blankets and towels and put them around your mouth so you're not breathing in the smoke, okay? And get to the place, try and head to where there's least smoke. And the advice continues, as you can see. And then you go on to page 5. They tell you we've opened one of the side windows. And then, just after halfway down, you say, have you left the flat? No reply, have you left the flat? Where are you now? 192. At that stage, what were you trying to do?
Well, just trying to keep them safe, trying to get them away from the fire.
We can see from this call that you were trying to assist them to leave. My question really is, why were you doing that on this call when they'd called back and not on the earlier call?
I don't know, it was just things that should have been happening weren't happening. You know, we should have been, you know, these people should have been rescued and we weren't able to get to them.
Right.
And what the policies that we had that have always worked in the past, they weren't working.
And this call is at 2:18. At that point, or by that point, had you had any information, positive information in the control room to lead you to think that crews were going to be able to get to the 22nd floor?
No.
So why were you thinking or expecting that crews were going to be able to reach them?
Because we do.
It's an assumption, is it?
We do, yeah, we do get to people and we do rescue them.
There's a third call from this flat a few minutes later at 02:34:16, and that's LFB 5063. I'm just picking a point or two up from that call. You say on page 3, it's the same flat, you say on page 3, in the middle of the page, 2 adults and 3 kids, yeah, all right, so just stay. Sorry, and then female speaker, inaudible, is being affected by the fire and flames and smoke. They got to get out. Damp towel, over speaking together. Up or down, where to go? Down. Can you just tell me what's happening on that? Are you speaking to someone in the control room or are you speaking to someone on the end of the phone?
Sorry, which part was it?
This
Can
is
you say
page
again?
3.
Yeah.
Just below halfway down, where you see female speaker. Inaudible, is being affected by the fire and flames and smoke. They've got to get out. Damp towel, over speaking together. Up or down, where to go? Can you help me with whether you're speaking to someone on the end of the phone or somebody in the control room?
I don't know. I mean, there was a lot of times on calls where I was speaking to people in the room as well.
Right.
But I don't know in that particular call.
Do you think this was you taking guidance from a supervisor? Is that possible?
Possibly.
You can't remember?
Possibly. I mean, I did have conversations where I was on calls and speaking to supervisors.
Right. Do you remember any language or communication difficulties with these callers from this particular flat?
I don't know about this particular flat. I mean, there were some calls where it was difficult because of like language or noise or like the sheer panic. I wouldn't be able to say which ones in particular.
Right. Now, another call from this time from flat 205, 23rd floor at 2:25:38. Control room report, page 80, and LFB 50670. Now, this is, as you can see, from the top of the page at 2:25:38, as I've said, and it's a connection, it looks like, from BT, which starts, there's a female on the line, says she's in flat 205, 23rd of the floor of the building. They can't get out and they're running out of oxygen. And then the call is essentially put through. And I just want to look at the bottom of page 2 with you. The caller says at the bottom, but my mother, she's diabetic, got asthma. And you say, okay, all right, listen, I'm just going to speak to the crews. Caller 2, could you get a chopper or something? Could you get a helicopter or something to get us out? There is one there, okay, all right. The fire brigade are on their way now. They're making their way. Now, first of all, do you remember? Well, first of all, did you consider whether you needed to ask the caller whether the mother has any difficulties moving, any mobility issues? You're told about diabetes and asthma. Did you think to ask about mobility issues as well?
No.
Okay. Is there a reason why you didn't do that?
No, I mean, I think by that stage it was the conditions. Everybody was going to have difficulties dealing with the situation.
Now, you can see, as I've just read to you, the bottom of page 2, top of page 3, you're asking about the helicopter. Do you remember if you thought at the time that the helicopter was there to carry out rescues?
No.
Did it occur to you to tell the caller that the helicopter was not there to carry out rescues and indeed could not carry out rescues?
No, to be honest, I didn't really. I suppose I dismissed the conversation about the helicopter because it's not something that we use.
Right. You say you dismissed it. Did it occur to you that by saying to them there is a helicopter there and the fire brigade are on their way, you might have planted in their minds a hope or expectation that they would be rescued by a helicopter?
Possibly, yeah. It's not. Yeah, it possibly could have done that. It's not my intention, though.
No. And then, well, let me just ask you, following up on that question, it wasn't your intention to do that, I can understand that. But are you trained to, when giving reassurance to callers, to make sure that whatever reassurance you give them, you don't raise expectations falsely in their minds about rescue?
Not specifically. I mean, I think maybe it was my expectation was raised about what we could and couldn't do.
Right.
Possibly, but it was definitely.
Did you think that a helicopter?
No, I didn't. Not in the case of the helicopter.
Right.
I mean, I knew the helicopter wasn't the brigade helicopter.
Right.
I mean, we haven't got one. We don't use them. So that would have been like the police sort of heli-telly or, but no, I think it was probably my expectation on the night of what we could do. Really, that I was giving to the callers. Right up until the point where we was told to get them out, because we weren't going to be able to get to them. So up until that point, I was any hope I was giving to the callers was, I think, my hope. I did genuinely think we were still going to get there and help these people.
Now, one more question, then I'm going to ask the Chairman for a short break.
Okay.
If I can. Can I just, because I don't want to leave this call hanging.
No.
If you look at the bottom of page 5 and over the top of page 6, you can see that you say at the bottom, okay, all right, okay, well, if the fire's in the living room, you need to get out of there. So this was now a fire call. Caller 2, how are we going to get out? We can't, something up in flames. Guys, there's flames, we need to go. And you say, okay. Caller 2, it's black. And then you say this, listen, it's your decision. If you need to leave, you need to leave. Caller, but the problem is, it's black, we can't breathe. You need to get some towels. And then you go on to tell them you need to get out. Was it clear to you at this stage that this was clearly definitive advice that they had to leave come what may?
Yeah.
It was. Now, Mr. Chairman, I think that's a convenient moment.
Is that right?
We're going to turn to a different topic, yes.
Yes, well, Ms. Hanson, we're going to have a short break now. Please don't talk to anyone while you're out of the room, at least about your evidence and so on. And if you go with the usher, we'll resume at 3:25, if that's right. Thank you very much. Right, 3:25, please. Thank you. All right, Ms. Hudson, ready to carry on? Thank you.
Ms.
Yes.
Hudson, thank you for coming back to us. I want to take you back to a call to show you the transcript, because the summary I showed you of the call was not completely complete. This is a call at 0200 hours and 33 seconds from Tony Disson, flat 194. Can I ask you please to be shown LFB 50337 337, and we have the time of the call at the top of the page, 0233 seconds. Can I ask you please to go to page 2? And you say there, you see there that you're told, "I'm a pensioner, darling, I can't get about." And then you are told, then you say, "Okay, listen, you can't go anywhere anyway, you're in the safest place there, all right, darling, it's black. Listen, the fire is on the 4th floor, okay? Are you doing everything you can to get the smoke coming in?" "Yes, you are, okay. My letterbox won't close, so it's coming through the letterbox." "All right, well, put a towel in, put something in it." "All right, thanks, all right." Just one or two questions about that. First of all, by this time, was it clear to you that the fire had spread to the top floor? This is 2 o'clock, more or less.
Yeah, it would have been, yeah.
If you had had the images from the heli-telly downlink or the television showing the external fire spread or smoke spread, do you think your advice to this caller would have been different?
I honestly don't know.
Would you have been able to say to him, "Well, you must get out," or to seek to explore the safety of the exit routes with him at that stage?
As I say, I honestly don't know. I've always been confident in the stay put policy, and it's always had good results, and that's what I believed was going to happen. And I believed that I was keeping them safe to be rescued. And I don't know whether having a heli-telly there would have made any difference to that.
Right.
Seeing the outside of the building, still not knowing really what's going on inside the building, what the state of the stairwells, the communal areas was like. So I don't know. I don't know whether it would have made any difference. I was following a procedure that I've followed many times, and has always saved people's lives. And that's what I did that night.
I want to ask you about the change in stay put. Can I take you back to your statement?
Yeah.
You say on page 6 of your statement in the 3rd paragraph that you can't remember an exact time, but you say, "I received instructions from my assistant operations manager, Debbie Real, that we needed to get these people out, and that the advice had changed. I now needed to tell people to get out of the building." Do you remember even roughly what time that was?
No.
Do you remember exactly what she said?
She stood in front of me and she said something to the effect of, "Right, get them all out now."
Right.
She said, "Tell them, wet towels, blankets, cover their faces and get them out of their flats. We can't get to them."
Was that the first time that you realised that the firefighters won't be able to rescue people in the building?
Yes.
Did you get an impression of which floors couldn't be accessed, or was it all of them?
All of them.
Did she hold a piece of paper up in front of you with some writing on it?
No, but she was very clear in her instructions.
And was she very clear in the terms and tone of what you were supposed to say?
Yes.
How clearly did you understand that the
Completely.
advice you were to give to callers was, you must get out at all costs. It's a live or die choice.
Very clear.
Right. Now, I just want to look at, I think we'll just one call around the time of the change in the advice. Can I ask you please to look at LFB 375? This is a call summarised in the control room report at page 95. It's flat 203 on the 23rd floor, timed at 02:46:02, as you can see from the number in the column at the top. And if I can ask you please to go to the, first of all, the first page of the call. And you say there, you're given the flat number, flat 203, what floor are you on, 21st floor? And then if you go to page 2, you're told, you record the fact that you're told the flat next door is on fire, and you say, put some stuff around the windows as well, just to try and keep as much smoke out, keep low. Obviously, we're letting fire crews know that you're there. How many of you in there? And it continues. And then towards the bottom of the page, you see that you can say, all right, I'll let them know. They are getting to you as soon as they can, okay. All right, just try and keep that smoke out. If anything changes, call us back. And then at the bottom of the page, you say, well, as I say, I've got a note of where you are. We're making our way up to you. Do you think, looking at what you're saying there, that this is a call that was made and you took before or after Debbie had given you the instructions?
Before.
Before. Right. And why do you say that with?
Because after she said it, I was giving people advice to get out.
Right. Now, we saw a call before the break at 2:30 floor from flat 192. It looks like you're taking guidance from a supervisor. We're not sure. And in the end, you told them to leave in that call. Why did you tell the callers in that call to leave, but not in this case?
Is that that's the call you just spoke to me about, isn't it?
No, it's a different flat.
Just keep on. But no, that one I'm telling them to stay.
Would you like to put the question again, Mr.
Well, yes, I suppose I'll have to now. There's a call earlier, which we looked at before. At 2:34, which is LFB 363. And I don't want to have to go back all over it again, but this was the call at the end of which you gave advice about damp towel, get out. Essentially, it was a get out call.
Yeah.
That was at 2:34.
Yeah. I think there was one call where I told people to get out prior to the instruction because the flat was on fire.
Right, I see. Okay. So is that the difference? That flat was on fire, so you were telling them to leave.
Yeah.
But now you've been given the general instruction.
General one, yeah.
I see.
Once we had the instruction,
right.
that was to tell all occupants, all the residents to leave.
I see. But so in this call, flat 203 at 2:42, you don't think you've been given the instruction by Deborah
No.
at this stage?
No. Once I'd been given the instruction, that was the advice I gave.
Right. Now, there's a further call at 2:58:42, and this is LFB 558. and this is with someone outside the tower. You just go to the second page of that, please. Caller, I've got someone on the 23rd floor, and the person says, I'm not in the flat. She's in the flat, I'm outside. That's in the middle of the page, and this is flat 203 again. And if you turn the page, you can see, no. This is 558 it's supposed to be on. Second page. LFB 558, second page. Yeah. So you see there 203, and then third page. So next page, please. And then you have a conversation about the floor, calling 999, and at the bottom you say, all right, I'll let the fire crews know, all right. I'll let the crews know. And then you can just turn the page to what I believe is the end of the call. And then you say, if she does phone you, and we're advising people, yeah, now they need to get out of the building, okay. But how will they get out of the building? No one showed them the way. Well, they need to attempt to get out of the building. If they can't stay in the flat anymore, have you spoken to them? And then there's a continuation of the discussion about smoke. And let's just go to the next page, please, where the call ends. And then you say at the top, well, listen, what I'm going to do is I'm going to let the crews know that she's still in there. And you get more details. And then you say, all right, I'll let the crews know. Now, this is at just before 3 a.m., after the time, I think, as we've established, where you were told you've got to give get out at all costs advice. Can I just ask you, why did you tell this caller that you'd let the crews know, given that you'd already by now been told by Debbie Real that the crews weren't going to be able to rescue anybody?
Well, no, I mean, still letting the crews know that we would... I mean, I'd told him to tell the occupants to leave.
We saw that, you did.
Yeah, and but we didn't stop telling the crews that we'd advise people in flats to leave. I mean, not all of the... Well, I don't know for sure, but I'm working on the premise that not all of the people that we spoke to called back after we got the instruction to leave the building. So, me personally, when I was telling people to leave, I was still passing that information on.
My question really is, what was the purpose of telling this caller, who was calling about their family in that flat, that you were telling the crews where they were, if in fact the crews weren't going to be able to rescue them? Well,
we didn't know that they were still trying. They were still trying to rescue people.
Right.
And if they had notification that people were in flats and we've told them to leave, then that's important as well.
I see. Now, going back to your statement at page 6, if I can just take you to that, you say, in the second paragraph, at one point the officer of the day walked around the control room and he had a picture of the tower on his mobile phone. The whole building looked like it was on fire. I cannot remember the time of when this was. Once I had the visual of what we were dealing with, everything made sense. I was still giving advice of stay put to people who were calling because we had not been instructed any further. I was sticking to the policy. Half of me was thinking, how will we get them out? And the other half was thinking, what do we do? Now, is it your recollection that you'd seen Jason Oliph's, or the officer of the day's, phone and the picture on it before Debbie Real came to you with the instructions that you should now tell everybody to get out?
Yeah, I think it was before.
And you say half of you was thinking, how will we get them out? And half, what do we do? Did you discuss that dilemma with anybody in the control room?
No, I mean, a couple of times I just shouted out in the room, how long are we going to, how long is it going to take to get to these people? But we didn't have the answers. We didn't know.
Do you remember how long after seeing that image you continued to give stay put advice for?
I don't, I'm afraid. I really don't.
Long or short?
I don't know. I don't think it wasn't very long.
Do you think that if you'd seen that image earlier on, it would have assisted you, having the whole picture, in the advice you were giving to callers? It's a question I asked before, but just by reference to this statement.
I don't think it would have changed the advice I was given. As I say, it still wasn't. It still didn't give us an idea of what was going on inside the building. It was just shocking. It was just, you know, and it was just. I don't know. It was just. I suppose it kind of made me think about, you know, that it wasn't necessarily going to be a good outcome, I suppose, but I still felt that what I was doing, what we was doing, was still the safest option.
Finally, can I just ask you a slightly separate question? If you had known that a number of callers in the building were calling from flats which had flat front doors with no functioning automatic door closers, would that have affected the advice that you were giving?
No.
Ms. Housen, thank you very much. You'll be glad to know I've come to the end of my questions. There may be one or two others that I feel I should ask looking back over my notes. So I'm just going to ask the Chairman to give us a short break. I'm not sure it may be necessary to rise because we had a short break not very long ago.
We have, haven't we? Well, normally we have a little break at this stage to give Council a chance to check he's asked all the questions he should have asked. And very often we do go out and I ride through it. But I think today you can sit down for a bit. You and I can sit here and just ignore what goes on, and then anyone who wants to speak to Mr. Millett can do that now. You can get a breather. All right?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Rather than risking further open outcry, treating it like an auction, I shall ask my final questions.
Right.
Ms. Housen, I do have one or two more. That's all right. First of all, did there come a time in the night when you knew that no more firefighters were being sent to carry out rescues in upper floors?
No.
Just being specific, at 3 o'clock, what was the state of your knowledge about the extent to which firefighters were getting up to the upper floors of the building?
No idea. No idea.
Okay. Now, we looked at the call at 24206, which was LFB 375, in relation to flat 203. We looked at that call, 24206. That was the call from the 23rd floor we discussed, where you don't tell them to leave, and then you get the instruction from Debbie Rial. My question is, did you consider calling flat 203 back to tell them that the advice had changed and that they must now leave?
I didn't know.
You didn't? Did you?
No.
Is there a reason for that?
Nope, no reason at all. I didn't
Right.
even think about it.
You didn't think about it?
No.
Okay, right.
We were still receiving calls.
Well, Ms. Howson, you'll be glad to know that those are all of my questions. It remains for me to thank you very much indeed for coming here to the inquiry today and for assisting us with our investigations. We're extremely grateful to you. So thank you.
And can I say thank you as well, Ms. Howson? I'm sorry if this has been a slightly disagreeable exercise, having to go back through the events of that night in some detail, and I can well understand that it might have been, but it is very important to us to understand in as much detail as we can what was going on that night, and so we're very grateful to you for coming to tell us what you know about it, and thank you very much indeed.
Yeah, well, I hope, if anything I've said, if it helps.
Of course it does help, yes, very much so. So thank you very much. And would you like to go with the usher? She'll look after you. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Millett.
Mr. Chairman, we can now call our final witness of the day, Heidi Fox, Control Room Officer Heidi
Yes,
Fox.
thank you. Thank you very much.
Once you get into it, they go mad.
Declare and affirm that the evidence I shall give should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Thank you very much, Ms. Fox. Now, sit down, make yourself comfortable. We can take this at your pace, and if at any point you feel you'd like to have a break, you just make that clear to me, all right? Thank you very much. Yes, Mr. Millett.
Ms. Fox, could you please give the inquiry your full name?
Heidi Jane Fox.
Okay. And as the chairman has said, if any time you feel you need a break during my questions, all you need to do is indicate and we can take a short break. We don't sit for more than an hour at a time, but we can sit for shorter periods if it helps you give your best evidence. My questions are supposed to be short and simple, and sometimes they're not. So if you want me to repeat a question or ask it in a different way, I'm more than happy to do that. Can I ask you to first to look at your statement that you gave to the police in October last year? You'll see it in the file in front of you or on the monitor on the desk to your right, which might be easier to look at it there because we blow it up and look at passages. It's dated the 5th of October 2017 and its reference is MET quadruple 077
It'll come up in a minute, don't worry.
64.
There we are.
It's there now. 5th of October 2017. Do you recognise that as the statement you gave to the police?
Yes, I do.
It is. Have you read it recently?
Yes, I have.
You have. Can you confirm that its contents are true?
Yes, it is.
Now, I want to start by asking some questions about your role and training. I think it's right that you've worked for the LFB, is this right, for 32 years or so prior to the date of this statement? So since about 1986, I think.
That's correct.
And has that always been in the position of a control room officer?
Yes.
And after your initial training, were you given any refresher training or additional training?
Yes, I have been.
And when was the last training you received before the Grenfell Tower fire in June 2017?
211, 212, 216.
Right. And in 2016, can you tell us what training that was?
That was with the command unit.
2012, what was that training?
That was fire survival guidance, refresher training.
Were you trained on emergency call management policy 539, do you think?
Yes.
What about fire survival guidance policy 790?
Yes.
You were. Were you ever trained on the lessons learnt from Lakanal House, if I can
Yes,
put it
we
that
were.
way? What were you trained on? What was that training?
The questioning is different now. We ask more questions and the attendance has changed.
Right. Now, you say in your statement that you have personal experience of flat fires. Are those high-rise fires?
Some high-rise.
Right. And have you had personal experience of handling fire survival guidance calls?
Yes.
Roughly how many during your long experience?
Numerous.
Can you give a number?
Dozen plus, maybe.
Dozen plus. Were any of those from high-rise residential blocks?
I can't recall.
Okay. Have you ever had any training on or experience of a situation where the control room is receiving multiple FSG calls?
No. No.
Until the night of Grenfell?
Yeah, like and all, there wasn't as many as Grenfell, but we had a few, but not as many.
Right. You were, I think, one of the control room officers at Lakanal, weren't you?
Yes.
And I think you spoke to one of the callers
I
and
did.
handled an FSG call at that.
I did.
At that fire. Can I ask you this? When Grenfell happened and unfolded, did your experience of being a control room operator at the Lakanal fire help you in any way?
Yes, it did help, but every fire survival guidance call is different.
Right. I see. In what way did it help?
It helped from some of the knowledge and some of the harrowing calls that we received at Lakanal. Obviously, we had a lot of harrowing calls at Grenfell that night.
Right. Now, I just want to ask some questions about your understanding of what we've come to call the stay put policy. In your statement on page 2, you say in the paragraph second from bottom, you say, in my experience, instinct takes over and the advice to stay or leave the property is given. I try to remain on the phone line for as long as possible to reassure the person calling. Ordinarily, we are trained to advise someone to remain within their property unless they are able to leave. Now, just breaking that down, when you say you're trained to advise someone to remain within your property unless they're able to leave, is that reference to advice you give to callers from high-rise residential blocks specifically, or any kind of fire in any kind of building?
No, that isn't worded very well. It is high-rise blocks.
Right. Now, when you say you advise them to remain in their property unless they are able to leave, can I clarify that? Do you mean that you advise them to stay unless they are affected by heat, by smoke, heat, fire, or heat?
Yeah, if they're affected by If there's no smoke inside the property, they're normally safer to stay within the building because
Right.
it's the duration is compartmentalised.
And if there is smoke within the property, let's take smoke for example, if there's smoke within the property, what do you then do?
We advise them to maybe move into another room, open a window, put the towels down, things like that.
Right. If they are affected by smoke, do you advise them to leave? Or do you...
Is it in a high-rise that we're talking
yes,
about?
we're talking about high-rise buildings.
We advise them to put the towels down.
Okay. And at what point in a call like that would it become a fire survival guidance call in your mind?
If they're unable to get out of the property.
Okay. At what point in a call would you make an assessment of whether it was safe for the caller to leave?
Well, you would ask the caller the questions, are they able to get out? You would assess the situation.
Right. At what point, what information would you have to have in front of you before you would start on that assessment?
Well, the 4 principles of the Fire Survival Guide is to escape, assess, and protect.
Well, let's look at that in a bit more detail. Can I, first of all, ask you to look at 539, Policy 539. That's LFB 737, tab 3 of the policies bundle. And if we go to Appendix 3 on page 16, it's called Fire Survival Guidance. And just scanning your eye, Ms Fox, down this page if you would. Are you familiar with this guidance in this policy?
Yes.
Okay. Now, looking at the third paragraph down, it says, Brigade Control advise callers to get out and stay out. However, if a call is received from a high-rise building where fire, heat and smoke are not affecting the caller, LFB would advise that you are usually safest to remain in your premises unless affected by fire, heat or smoke. If the situation changes, you should leave your premises and dial 999 if you need further assistance. And then it goes on to tell you what should happen if the caller is unable to escape. Now, just looking at that appendix, first of all, is what I've just read to you, does that accord with your understanding of the stay put policy?
Yes.
It is, it does. Can you explain what information you would use, in your experience, to make the assessment as to whether a caller's premises are affected? You can see the word affected by fire, heat or smoke. What information would you need for that?
Well, you would need to know where the smoke's coming from, if it's got inside the property.
Right. If there was smoke inside the property, the caller was telling you, I've got smoke in my flat in a high-rise building, does that mean that the caller is not safe to remain in their premises and should be looking to escape?
It depends if the smoke is inside their property or if the smoke is on the stairwell.
I see. If it was inside their property...
Sorry, in the corridor.
Okay. If it was inside their flat, would that mean that they were no longer safe and therefore should look to escape?
Well, you could ask them where if there is a fire inside the flat or where the smoke is coming from. It may be the smoke that's come from outside in the corridor, just under their doors, into the actual property itself.
Right.
In which case you could ask them to go to a window and close the door,
Right.
ventilate the property.
Okay, then moving away from this, well, just note, because you referred to it, that on that same page, if we look further down, we can see that you have the 4 principles. And I'll just ask you about that before we leave this page. Those 4 principles, when do they first kick in?
When you take the call.
Right, because the first of those is to assist the caller to identify a safe alternative escape route. I'm just going to... Just
Should
one...
we have the bottom part enlarged? 'Cause
Yes.
I think it's very difficult for Ms Fox to read it on the screen.
But the reason I wanted it on... Well, there's a reason why I wanted the whole thing, because it links back to something at the top of the page.
All right, well...
Can we just... if we could just look at the whole thing to start with. You can see that at the bottom of the page, it starts... I think it starts, not quite clear. It says the control room officer will ascertain through initial questioning the type of premises the caller is in and use the link on the reference information file. And then the control room officers will always use the 4 principles of escape, assess, protect and rescue to provide guidance to these callers. Now my question is, these callers, to your way of understanding, are the 4 principles of escape, assess, protect and rescue applicable to FSG callers, or is it any caller who calls from within a flat in a high-rise building who says that they're affected?
Any caller.
Any caller, right. So a person who calls and says, I'm affected by smoke, I've got smoke in my flat, to your way of thinking, Ms. Fox, does that mean that you would then start the 4 principles by identifying, the first one, a safe alternative escape route?
You would ask them if they could get out.
Right. And then you would go on, if it wasn't possible, assess the situation by asking the caller direct questions. Is that your understanding of how you should proceed?
Yes.
Right. So just pausing there before we look at 790, does it work like this, so I understand your understanding? If a caller is in a high-rise residential block and isn't affected by smoke, heat or fire, you tell them to stay where they are. If there's smoke coming into the flat, is the next thing you do, to your way of understanding, you start by assessing whether there's a safe alternative escape route for them to leave.
If the smoke's coming inside the flat from outside, then you ask them to block the doors, and
right.
if you said it was coming, did you say it was coming from outside?
Well, if they were affected in any way by smoke.
Yeah, you would ask them to block the doors.
Right. So where you've got a caller who says, there is smoke in my flat, at what point would you begin to identify a safe alternative escape route?
Is it high-rise? Is it within
It's
the
all
high-rise?
high-rise. Assume we're on high-rise.
Well, you would question them, and you would ask them if they know where their escape route is.
Right.
But most people that live in the flats and high-rises do know where their escape route is, because there's normally, they just go through their front door to their nearest stairwell.
They know where the route is, but this policy says that you need to assess or help them identify a safe alternative escape route. But there are a number of questions. The first question is, at what point in a call would you start that exercise?
You would ask them if they can get out of the property.
Right. And at what point would you ask them that question?
Sorry, I don't understand the question.
Okay. So you've got a caller who says, I've got smoke in my flat. My question to you is, would that then prompt you to go to say, well, tell me whether you can get out? Or would you not assess the safe alternative escape?
No, you would ask them if it was safe to get out.
Right.
If the fire was inside their flat, you would ask them if it was safe to get out of their property.
Now, you say if there's fire inside their flat, I understand that, but what about smoke? If there's smoke inside their flat,
I would tell them to get out.
you would, right? And you would have to. Does that mean that you would go through this process of helping them first of all identify a safe alternative escape route?
Yes.
You would. Now, so that's your understanding. So smoke in the flat, help them assess an escape route.
Yes.
I'm not pushing this. I just want to know what your understanding is, so we're clear. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, can I take you then to policy 790, which is tab 5 of our policy bundle. You can see from the first page of that this was reviewed as current as of April 2014. Were you familiar with this, this policy as at the night of the Grenfell Tower fire?
Yes.
Okay. Page 2, if you would, under paragraph section 2, fire survival guidance call definition. An FSG call is a call received into control where the caller believes they are unable to leave their premises due to the effects of fire, and where the control officer remains on the line, providing appropriate advice. Is that your understanding of what a fire survival guidance call is?
Yes.
It is. Now, looking at the first line of that, where the caller believes they're unable to leave their premises, is it a fire survival, to your understanding, is it a fire survival guidance call when the caller says, I can't get out, or I don't think I can get out? Or is it an FSG call when you're satisfied that the caller genuinely can't get out, having explored it with him or her?
When the caller tells you they can't get out, because they're the ones that have got the visual, and
Right.
they're the ones that...
Okay. So you're relying solely on the information given to you by the caller about whether they can get out?
Yes.
Okay. So does that mean you don't go through a process of saying, well, come on, let's see how genuine this is. What's the smoke like outside your flat? Can you actually see the other side of the corridor? Do you go through that kind of process or not?
You rely on the information that the caller gives you.
Right. Would you normally get or expect to get in updates from the incident ground to help you make that assessment?
We get informative messages from the incident ground.
Yeah. Nothing
Not
else?
from each individual caller, we get informatives from the incident ground.
Right. And looking at paragraph 4, prioritising calls, same page, 4.1, occasionally control receives multiple FSGs at an incident. All FSGs received by control are treated with the same level of urgency. However, in certain circumstances, the officer in charge of control may direct call handlers to terminate a call to answer another. First, have you ever had experience of being in the control room where the officer in charge of control directed call handlers to terminate a call to answer another?
Not previously to Grenfell, no.
Previous, I meant, you're right.
Yeah.
Previous to Grenfell, no. And then, same page, bottom of the page, paragraph 5, information transfer to the incident. As soon as control has confirmed that an FSG call is in progress, they will contact the incident ground and start to pass over the initial details. At this stage, it's likely to be basic information relating to the number of persons involved and their location within the property. That's what that says. In your experience, what would be the usual method that the control room would adopt for passing over information to the incident ground?
We would pass the information over via service request to the appliance on scene or the command unit on scene and give the information to the fire ground.
Right. You say service request. Does that come up on? That's on the vision log, is it?
On the vision.
And you say to the
radio operator. The service request will go to the radio operator,
Yes.
and the radio operator will pass the information on to the fire ground.
I follow. Thank you. Now, at that early stage, when you're collecting initial details, would you collect? And I'm talking about FSG calls specifically. So a call where a caller believes they cannot escape. At that point, would you obtain or collect details about the age or disability, if any, of the caller?
You can ask the caller. Normally, if they've got a disability, the caller would normally give that information themselves.
But would you normally expect to ask? So the answer is no, you wouldn't ask for it, you'd expect them to volunteer it?
Not always. You ask them how many people are inside the property. You ask them if there's any children.
Right.
If the person's got a disability, they normally give that information themselves.
Right. Now, if you turn the next page, please, in the policy, to paragraph 5.5, you'll see, and we can have that blown up. Control will attempt to gather all information on the control information form, see Appendix 2, and relay this information to the incident as and when it becomes available. Now, I've asked lots of control room officers about the control information form. Have you ever used a control information form in the control room?
No.
No. Do you know why it's never used? Or you haven't used it?
I don't know the reason, but normally when you get a fire survival call, the last thing you want to do is try and look for a form and start filling that in.
Right. Then you can see a list of bullet points of details. Number of flat, house, number of persons involved, location of caller, etc. Now we're dealing with FSG calls, so caller is trapped or believes they can't get out. In your experience, would you expect to be able to get all of that information from the caller?
Yes, you would try and hope that you would.
Right. Now, would you... And then you'd pass that over to the incident ground, would you?
That's right.
And that would be what, through a service
Through a
request,
service
through the vision
request.
log?
Yeah.
Yes, I see. Can I now turn to the night of the fire? Now, we know you were based in the Stratford control room. You were seated well, let's see if we can do this by a picture. Can I ask for the witness, please, to be shown LFB 0004790, page 175. That is a photograph of the Stratford control room. Miss Fox, can you just help us? Where were you sitting on the night of the Grenfell Tower fire?
I was sitting in the far corner.
You're pointing at your monitor.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Do you want me to stand up?
Would you mind? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Sorry. I was sitting over here.
So the little red dot is hovering over a screen right in the far corner. Okay, so you're the other side of the OM and AOM.
Yeah, the OM and the AOMs were there.
Okay.
And I was there.
Who was sitting next to you?
Nobody.
Right, you were on your own. Right. Who was the nearest other control room operator?
I believe Pete Duddy was sitting. I think he was sitting here.
So that witness is pointing to the left-hand arrow in the pair of arrows on the left of the photograph.
About there.
There, right.
And then the whiteboard went here.
Right, and the whiteboard was behind him. Okay. So there's a bank of screens there at the back of the room. Was there nobody but you sitting there?
No,
Right.
just me.
So you're at a lonely pitch. Okay. Right. Now, we've been told where the television was. I think it was on the back wall. Is this right? Behind the OM and AOM. Yeah, and it was. I think you say that you couldn't see if it was on or off.
No, I couldn't see where I was sitting.
Right. Was there any point during the night when you thought it would be useful to see the images that might have been on the news, on the television?
I think we were too busy to look. We were all too busy to look and see the images.
Now, are you aware, or were you aware, that there should have been images available to the control room from the heli-telly downlink?
It didn't work.
Didn't work.
No.
Would it have been helpful to have that working?
Again, we were so busy, I don't think we would have had time to actually looked at it and seen it.
Right. Now, you say in your statement, and this is page 4, third paragraph, second line, that and I'll summarise, on the night of the incident, you went on a break with Angie Gotts, and at about 1 o'clock, and then within 20 minutes, you were told by Peter May to come back into the room. I'm summarising what you say there. Now, the first record of a call taken by you was at 1:25:12, and that's page 15 of the control room report, LFB 0004790. If we could just have that up on the screen, page 15. Do you see 1:25:12? But it's a simple question, I think. Does that sound about right to you as the time at which you took your first call?
Yes.
Okay. Now I'm going to ask one or two specific questions about some calls. Before I do that, can I just ask you, when you started to take calls, how did you go about recording the information that you were getting?
On the vision system.
Right. And does that mean that then went to Sharon Darby on the radio and she passed it to the incident ground?
To take the call, we took the call on the vision system. If we gave a message to Sharon, it would have been via the service request.
Yes.
On the vision system.
And do you remember that at one point there was an officer who came into the control room and set up a whiteboard?
Yeah, that was Officer of the Day, Jason Olive.
Jason Olive. And how long, roughly, after you started taking calls, do you think he did that?
I don't know.
All right. And when he did that, what did you understand the purpose of the whiteboard system to be?
He was putting the flat numbers up, the people inside the flats.
Was that replacing the usual system of radio operators passing information to the incident ground, or was it an additional method of communication?
It was an additional method, but it's also a visual method so that we could see it in the control room.
Right. Now, you come back into the control room, you take your first call. What information at that point did you have about what was happening?
Well, when Peter May knocked on knocked on the door, Angie and I, he said it's a 10-pump fire. So we walked into the room and a 10-pump fire.
Right. After you'd sat down, do you remember hearing the make-ups? 10 and then 15 and then 20?
I think I remember the 20, but after that, the only one I remember after that was the 40.
Right. Okay. So you don't remember it going 25 at
No.
1:31?
No.
Okay. Was this increase in make-ups that you'd come into something you'd ever experienced before?
Not at that fast pace.
Right. What did that fast pace tell you about the way this fire was behaving?
I didn't know how the fire was behaving, but it told me that it was going to be a big job.
Right. A big job. A big job in what sense?
Or a major fire.
Major fire. I just want to ask you about two or three calls before the stay put advice changed. First of all, can I ask you please to look at the control room report, page 17. This is at 1:26:58. And this is a call from flat 95 towards the bottom of the page, 1:26:58. CRO Fox takes a call from a female reporting a fire in Grenfell Tower. The caller explains that she's on the 12th floor and asks for some advice on what to do. CRO Fox clarifies the address and the caller explains she can see the fire through the window and reports that her neighbour says that the fire is in her kitchen already. The caller says that smoke is coming from the main door and CRO Fox advises her to put wet towels down to stop the smoke. There's some audible confusion regarding whether the towels should be wet or dry, and CRO Fox then confirms the location and the flat number as flat 95. CRO Fox states that she'll pass the information to the crews, and the call lasts 2 minutes and 10 seconds. Now, we can see that the call is from the 12th floor, and you're told that there's fire coming through the window. She can see fire through the window, and that there's a fire in her neighbour's kitchen. That is what's said here in the summary, and also smoke coming through the caller's main door. Now, with all of that information, what did that tell you about where the fire was and how it was behaving at this point, 1:26?
Well, I believe the fire was still on the 4th floor. But obviously she is saying that there is smoke on the 12th floor.
But she's also saying that her neighbour is saying that the fire is in her kitchen already. So why did you think that the fire was still on the 4th floor?
I don't know, I can't remember.
No. Did it occur to you that this fire had obviously started on the 4th floor but had spread enormously and was now on the 12th? Was that a thought you had at the time?
I can't remember what I was thinking at the time.
Okay. Did you tell anyone in the control room that there were reports of smoke and fire on the 12th floor at this point?
Everybody in the control room was inundated with fire calls. I believe I wrote the number down on a piece of paper.
Is there a reason why you, given the information you had, you didn't advise the caller to leave or check whether it was safe for them to leave and help them with that?
Again, I can't remember. I took so many calls that night, I cannot remember that one.
Okay. Do you remember making some kind of assessment as to whether this caller was actually trapped in their flat or whether, in fact, they could leave?
I don't know, I'd have to listen to the tape again.
Right. Would you classify this call as an FSG call? I mean, I appreciate I've only shown you a summary, but on that information, would you call this an FSG call to your way of understanding?
Possibly.
Possibly. What makes you unsure?
Again, I'd have to listen to the tape or listen to the caller and clarify exactly what was happening. And maybe I didn't answer enough questions at that time.
Right. We can look at the transcript if it helps you. This is LFB 309. Let's do that. LFB quintuple 0 309. And let's go to page 2. It starts, "Hi, good evening, I'm calling from Grenfell Tower. We do have fire in the building, we're living on the 12th floor." And you establish the address. And at the foot of the page, you're told, "I need to know, I got her something, because I heard that it's the floors below, next door. My neighbour's saying, my neighbour, she's saying, the fire in her kitchen already. I have 2 kids, we really don't know what to do." And then you say, "Yeah, have you got any smoke coming into your property?" And we turn the page. "Yes, it's coming through the floor from our main door because it's outside." And then you explore putting sheets or towels down to stop the smoke coming in. And then there's more discussion about which flat number and floor number it is, and then you say, 2/3 of the way down, "I'll tell them on the radio, in your flat 95 on the 12th floor. Okay, thank you. Okay, is it the normal towel or wet towels? Sorry, I can't hear you." And then we turn the page. "Is it the normal towels or wet towels?" It doesn't say it's at flat 16 in the Grenfell Towers. No, we're on the floor 12. "Yeah, but I'm telling you, listen, I'm just telling you where the actual fire is, okay, so it's flat 16. And then the caller says, "It's 16, but it's already came to the 12th. She's saying that she's telling that she was shouting that she's having the fire in the kitchen." "Yeah, that's right, and the fire brigade are on the scene." Okay, all right. Then the call then ends. So that's the totality of the call I've shown you, admittedly at some speed, Ms. Fox. But my question was, would you classify this as an FSG call, a fire survival guidance call?
It would have been a fire survival call,
Okay.
FSG call, yes.
Yeah. My question is, why would it be? What do you get from that information to lead you to think that the caller was trapped and couldn't leave their flat?
Because she was saying that she's having a fire in the kitchen.
That's next door.
Sorry, I've misunderstood it. She's getting smoke inside the property, so I would have told her to put the wet towels down. There's a couple of points on there where it says it's inaudible.
Right. Okay.
Again, on the transcript, it looks completely different to when you're actually listening to the caller on the phone.
Right.
And also the noise in the room and the call. It looks clear and easy on the transcript, but when you're actually taking the call, it's completely different.
I'm going to go to another call. This is flat 194, Tony Disson, 22nd floor. This is his call at 1:30 and 8 seconds, probably easier and quicker to go to the transcript. LFB 50459. Now, if you go to page, the next page, he says, "It's terrible up here, middle of the page. You can't see a hand in front of you. Listen, just make sure you put some towels down and things to stop the smoke coming in." "All right then, darling, thank you. All right then, thank you for your call. I'll tell all the rest, all right?" And then, "All right, thank you. 22nd, yeah, thank you, bye. 20, thank you, bye." It's a short call. Now, what I want to focus on is he says that the conditions are terrible and you can't see a hand in front of you. You don't ask him whether there's fire in his flat. Or why is that?
Because normally the caller would turn around and tell me that there is a fire inside his flat.
Again, was there a reason why you didn't go through the assessment with him to see whether he could safely leave?
Probably the amount of calls that we were receiving on the night. We had to
Right.
be aware that there was numerous calls coming in and we had to deal with everybody and try and speak to everybody, but also we were looking after the rest of London, and there could have been a major fire or a house fire somewhere in the south of London, again, that we didn't know that was within them calls.
Right. Another call. This is flat 205, 23rd floor, 138 and 16, and this is LFB 317. And we believe this is Mariam El Ghwari. who had originated from flat 196, but was now in flat 205 on the 23rd floor. If I can just ask you to be shown that. This is at 138.16. And if you just look at the first full page, she says, "Hi, there's a fire in Grenfell Tower. I know you guys are here, but the line got cut off last time I called." And then she tells you, "We are all stuck on the 23rd floor." 23rd, yeah. 23rd floor, okay, we were actually on the scene, as you're aware, but I'll tell them you're on the 23rd floor, yeah. 23rd, it's flat, what flat is it? 205, and then you continue, and then continue the next page, please. And then there's no smoke or anything coming into the property, nothing yet. Our flat was underneath, no smoke, and it was absolutely fine, and all of a sudden, just blew into our kitchen. Now, just on what she's telling you there, did that tell you that at this point, this is 138, the fire had by now spread from the 4th floor to the 22nd floor, which is where she'd come up from?
She was telling me there was smoke on the 22nd floor.
Well, she's
And then
come up
smoke
from
on
196.
Sorry, I'm just reading.
Sorry, I'm
reading.
so sorry.
That was underneath and smoke inside. Yes, but the crews were on scene, and I believe that they were going up and checking every floor at that time.
Right. Did it tell you that, did this information tell you that whatever else had happened before that, by now the fire had definitely spread from the 4th floor and was attacking the 22nd floor?
From reading that information, yes.
Yes. Did you tell anybody in the control room, such as Debbie Rial, at that point that the fire had now definitely spread to the topmost part of the building?
I think the supervisors were busy, and I think they probably would have established that by now.
But you don't know that?
I don't know that, no.
Okay. Now I'm going to ask you some questions about the change in stay put advice. If I can ask you to go to your witness statement.
Mr. Millett, obviously we're going to go on a little bit longer.
Not very much longer, but
Well,
yes,
as
a
long as
little
it
bit.
takes, but
It might be convenient for a short break now.
well, that's the first thing I was going to say. Would you like a break at this stage?
I don't mind. I'd rather continue.
You're happy to keep going, are you? All right. Can I just ask others in the room, in particular the document manager and the stenographers, are you content to go on for a little bit? All right. Thank you very much. Yes, we'll press on in that case.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm grateful to everybody. Thank you. Can I ask you to look at your witness statement, page 4, bottom paragraph, please? And you say there, initially the advice was given to remain inside the building until my OM, Alex Norman, informed me that the advice had changed, and she said to me, "Tell them to get out." I remember hearing about there being problems with the stairwell, and I remember one operational staff member saying to me, "We aren't going to get to them." Do you remember, first of all, even roughly what time this was?
No, I had no idea of time. It was a complete blur.
Do you remember exactly what she said to you by way of advice?
As my statement said, to tell them to get out.
Tell them to get out. That's your clearest memory of her exact words, is it?
Yeah.
Did she give you any indication as to how to get that across to callers, and what terms to use, what tone to use?
No, she just told them to get, or she advised us to tell them to get out.
Right. And was it your understanding that that advice, tell them to get out, had to be absolutely clear? This was a life and death choice.
She didn't say it was a life and death choice, but to tell them to get out, obviously it was.
Was that your understanding that it was? Right. Now, you go, as I've shown you, you've said that you say that you remember one operational staff member saying to me, "We aren't going to get to them." Do you remember at this point, or by this point, had you learnt that firefighters were not going to be able to rescue people trapped in the building?
In that part of my statement, that hasn't been written very well. That was on another call that I got that I was asking Jason Olef, and that's when he said to me, we're not going to get to them.
Was that
on another call?
I see. Was that before or after Debbie Real had come to you with the change in advice?
That was after.
It was after. How long after, do you remember?
I can't remember.
Did you get any kind of impression as to whether that was the whole building or just parts of the building which were going to be inaccessible to fire crews?
I can't remember.
Okay. I just want to look at one or two of the calls that you received or took around this time. First of all, flat 182, 21st floor. And there's a transcript that reference LFB 374. We can see the time of this call is 02:43:54. And if you go to the first page, you can see that you established the flat number and the floor number and the number of people in the building, in the flat. 5 of us hurry up, 2 adults, 3 children. And then the next page, you say, okay, are you able to get yourself out of the property safely? No. Okay, right, what you need to do is get some damp towels or damp sheets and put them over yourself as well. Hello, hello. And I think the call ends at that point. It's not a very long call, and perhaps we can't do it off this, but you're telling them there to get, well, you're asking, can you get out safely? Do you think this call was before or after you'd been told by Deborah Real to tell callers to get out, looking at the terms of the advice you're giving here?
I can't remember to be precise. But if Alex Norman came round and told us to tell them to get out, then it would have been afterwards.
Right. Is there a reason why you didn't say to these callers, you have to leave, come what may, get yourself out now?
Well, I think the line cleared by looking at that.
Right.
Because I'm asking them hello, hello, and then the line is cleared before I can ask them any further information.
There's another call, I'll show you, flat 192, 22nd floor, at 2:42:22. So this is the next call that you take, or shortly after. And this is LFB 378. And if we just look at that, it starts on page 2. We can just have that, please. Fire brigade, hello, we're on the 22nd floor, we're dying. 22nd, yeah, what floor are you on? 22nd. And it carries on, and again, and at the foot of the page, after going through who's in the flat, you say, okay, now listen to me. Are you able to get yourself out of your property safely? No, we can't. We opened it and we can't. If you turn the page, you can't. I tried, but we can't. We're trapped in the bedroom. They're in the bedroom. Yeah, what are you waiting for? We're dying. And then there's an off-call conversation. Now, do you remember who you might have been talking to in the control room during that call?
No, I don't remember.
Do you remember having assistance from Debbie Real or Joe Smith at this stage? This is...
I don't remember.
This is at about 2:45.
I don't remember.
Do you remember getting any assistance during the night with calls from senior operations managers within the control room?
No, because they were too busy dealing with other...
Right. So if you didn't get assistance from operations managers, who would you have been talking to?
I don't know, I can't remember.
Okay. Now, it goes on to say, yeah, I've been telling them, inaudible, right, hello, yeah. Yeah, what you need to do is you need to get out of the property now. You need to get out. We can't. You have to try to get out. You have to try, and you need to get some towels around your head and face into your body, and you need to try and leave the property because the firemen are there, okay? So you need to try and leave. Then over the page, you say, just pick this up. The next page. Where are they? They're on different floors, so you need to try and make out safely. Now, looking at that, do you think this call was after Debbie Real had told you the new advice? Looking at the terms of the advice you're giving?
Yes, because I'm telling them to get out.
Right. And they tell you, if you go to the next page, you're told the only place that they can go is the window because the corridor is already full of smoke. And it continues in that vein. Essentially, you're telling them to leave and they say they can't. And we'll just go to the next page. I think we can see that more clearly. Perhaps we can't. And the call then ends. My question is there a reason why you didn't stay on the call and try and guide them out?
There's no reason, but you can't. Maybe at the time I couldn't stay on every call, or maybe they weren't listening to me. Not all the callers were listening to us. We can only give a guidance and we can only advise the caller. They're the ones there on scene. We can only do our best to guide the caller and give them advice to get out of the property.
Right.
But not all callers were listening to us.
No, I understand that. And were you conscious during this call, or perhaps other calls, that the callers you were speaking to were individuals for whom English was not their first language?
There was a lot of callers I spoke to that English wasn't their first language. Some of them may have had problems understanding what we were saying.
Right. Did you take any kind of steps to try to help them understand what you were saying?
You always take steps for them to help, for you to help them. That's what we do. We save life. We always try and help everybody. It doesn't matter what language they are.
Can you just help me just identify what those steps are? If you're talking to someone who's English, for whom English isn't a first language, how would you go about helping them to understand you?
You would maybe speak to them a bit slower. You would maybe try and emphasise your words a bit more. Again, every call is different, but you try and help every caller.
Right. And do you think you did that?
On the night, I believe we all done that. We all tried our best.
Now, going back to your statement on page 5, fifth paragraph from the top, middle of the page, you say, at around 5 o'clock hours was the first I saw Grenfell Tower was on Sky News. What did you see?
It was a bit of a shock. It was a high-rise building that was literally on fire.
Do you remember who showed you that image?
No, I can't remember.
Do you think that if you'd seen that image earlier on, it would have assisted you in terms of the advice that you were giving?
I don't think so, because we were giving everybody the advice that was appropriate at the time.
Different question, different topic. If you had known on the night that many callers were calling from flats or about flats which had front doors with no functioning automatic door closers, would that have affected the advice that you were giving?
No, we would have given the same advice.
Okay. Ms. Fox, thank you very much for your patience. I've come to the end, for the time being, of the questions that I've got for you. Normally what we do is take a short break and I'll check my notes and see whether there are any further questions that we have. So, Mr. Chairman, might we be able to do that?
Yes, we'll have a 5-minute break so that Council can do any sweeping up that needs to be done.
Okay, thank you.
Please don't talk to anyone about your evidence while they're out of the room.
Okay, thank you.
And if you'd like to go with the usher, she'll look after you. All right? And we'll come back at 5:15. Thank you very much. Mr. Millett, I'll say 5:15, but if you're ready sooner, I'll get the usher to bring
Yes,
you
thank
back.
you. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Well, Mr. Millett, you found one or two?
They have been found. And we will press on, but not for long, Mr. Chairman, I hope.
Right, Ms. Fox, I think one or two more questions, not, I hope, too many.
Okay, thank you.
We'll see. Yes, Mr. Millett.
Ms. Fox, there are a few further questions, but I hope not to detain you for very much longer. So thank you very much for coming back for this last innings. The first is a call at 2:54:21. I'm going to ask you short questions about very specific calls for certain families. This is LFB 549, but the best place to pick it up is page 108 of the control room report, if we can. This is a call. We'll wait for it to come up on the screen. A call at 2:54:21. Well, we can. Well, we've got this transcript now. It probably takes longer to go through it. Perhaps it doesn't matter. We'll use the transcript. Navigator, hello. Navigator, what's the name of the block? Navigator, hello, can I help? First of all, what's Navigator? So it wasn't a question I had prepared to ask you, but I'm curious.
I haven't got a clue.
Right. Is it a, I mean, all right. And then Navigator says, yeah, it's a fire at Grenfell House. I'm handing you over to someone who knows someone that trapped inside. Does that help us identify Navigator?
I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with that. My mind's gone blank, I'm sorry.
Don't worry. Well, then, let's pick it up. Then you say, Navigator, can I help you? Yeah, my friend's stuck on the 22nd floor of the building that's on fire. 22nd floor, okay. Yeah, 194. Then you say, what's her number? And if you turn the page, 194, I can watch him looking out the window and there's fire all around him. You say, yeah, I know. And how many people are stuck inside there? It's just there, just him there. Right, what we're doing is, well, why isn't he ringing? He needs to ring 999. That's what he needs to do. And then my battery's died. I can't get through to him. My battery's died. I don't know his number. Right, well, we're asking people to leave their properties, but I tell them, and then it goes on like that. If you just turn the page, I think we'll see the call end. Yes, all right, I'm going to, thank you. Tell them on the radio, though. All right, don't worry, I'm going to, okay, tell them. Now, this is at 2:54:21. Now, I think you were saying earlier in that call that you were telling people to leave. So can we be clear that this was after Debbie Rail had told you to change the advice to get out?
It wasn't Debbie Rail, it was Alex that came round to change us advice.
Right. Okay. But in timing terms...
I can't remember that call. And as I said to you before, the time was a complete blur. I don't know what time they told us to get them out. All I know that was Alex was in front of me and she told him to get out. I can't tell you what time it was.
When you were told that this caller was in flat 194 on the 22nd floor, did you refer to the whiteboard during this call for someone matching that flat number and floor?
No, I didn't refer to the whiteboard because it would have been too busy. I know Yvonne was taking our slips of paper and she was giving it to Joseph Olev that was updating the whiteboard. Right.
Did you write down the details of this on a piece of paper and give it to Jason Olev at that point, do you think?
I could have done, but I took so many calls that night. I can't remember that particular one.
Okay. Can I ask you to be shown LFB 50419, which is a call from flat 142. And you can see the time of this, 03:18. I'll just go back to the first page so that it's clear, please, Ralph. 03:18:45. So this is long after I think we've established that the stay put advice had changed. Can I go to the first page of that transcript, please? And you're told the address, 142, and you say a third of the way down, you need to try and get yourself out of the property. and they say, but it's too hot, like outside that door, 5 people inside, and then if you turn the page, there's some discussion, and then in the middle of the page you say, so you've got 5 adults and you're not able to get yourself outside. Caller, no, there's 2 elderly people, and you're at flat 143, 17th floor, 142, 142, 142, 142. Okay, I'll tell them on the radio. Please come, there's elderly people here, please. All right, thank you, bye-bye. And the call ends. The question is, and to be fair to you, you're told there are elderly people. But given now that you've been told clearly by this time that the advice has to be that they must get out, is there any reason why you didn't tell this caller that they must leave come what may?
I can't remember that call, but I'm sure I would have told them to get out. Maybe they weren't listening to me. I can't remember that call.
Okay. There is a call earlier in the evening, and we can do this, I think, by reference to the control room report, different flat. And this is page 139 and 140. I'm sorry, 39 and 40, forgive me, my fault. Page 39 and 40 of the control room report.
We've got the number. Let's give it.
This is 20840. Just give me a moment, I'll find it, I'm afraid. It's 0208 48. Yeah. And it's page 67.
You've got the document.
Yes, it's LFB quadruple 04790. Yeah, the control room report. And it's 0208 48. CRO Fox takes a call from a female caller who explains that she is in Grenfell Tower and there is a fire on the floor below them. The caller is in flat 175 on the 20th floor. CRO Fox asks how many people there are in the flat, and the caller replies that there is her husband and 3 kids, 1 baby. CRO Fox confirms this and states that she is passing all the details on to our command unit that is on the scene. Caller says, and this is the important part, there is smoke coming into the flat, and CRO Fox provides FSG about blocking the doors to keep the smoke out, and the caller advises that she had already done that. CRO Fox confirms that she passed on the information to the crews to come and get them, and tells the caller to call back if she needs to. My question is, given that you're told there that the caller says there's smoke coming into the flat, Ms. Fox, why did you make no attempt to assess with the caller whether there was a safe means of escape?
Because I actually told her to put the towels down and the sheets down, and I think at that time we were still using the safe put policy.
Yes. I think you said to us earlier on that once there was smoke coming into the flat, you would start to assess the means of escape from a flat. My question really is, why didn't you do that, given that that was how you would normally go about assisting a caller?
I think I may have got confused before with the questioning.
With my questioning?
Possibly.
Right. So let me go back over it, because I don't want there to be any confusion. Just to roll back a little bit. When a caller tells you they are affected by smoke, is it your understanding that at that point you would start to assess the safety of means of escape, or would you leave that till later?
No, we would assess the means of escape,
yeah,
and ask them to block the doors and stop the smoke coming in.
Right. So
and then I'll pass that information onto the radio or the command unit.
Right. So the question is, given that you were told on this call that there was smoke coming in, why didn't you start with the caller to assess the safety of the means of escape?
Maybe because of the number of calls coming in. I can't answer that question.
Okay.
I can't remember the night.
Okay. And there's another call along the same lines, 211 42, which I won't ask you about, and I can't actually find on the control report. We have a call, as we know, which you handled for some 33 minutes with Marcio Gomez from the 21st floor, which started at 3:25, and we've been through that with Mr. Gomez. I'm certainly not going to ask you any details about that call, Ms. Fox. I just want to ask you one question. Can you tell us why you stayed on the call with Mr. Gomez from 3:25, but didn't stay on any FSG calls with any other callers prior to that time to assist them out of the building?
Again, I can't answer that. It was very alien to all of us in the control room that night. We never ever put the phone down to people when it's with regards to fire safety guidance calls. We always try and help people. The fire crews always get there. In my 32 years, Mr. Gomez and his family, I don't know, maybe instinct took over. And I don't know. I think it was because he started off calm and then he said the fire was in his flat. I'd asked him how many children he got. He said his wife was pregnant with a baby, asthmatic. And I just stayed on the line with him and helped guide him down the stairs and done the best that I could that night.
Yeah.
Same as we all did. We just worked so hard. And again, looking at the transcripts and listening to the calls are completely different.
Right. Finally, just a couple more calls. At 1:26:58, there's a call in relation to flat 95, which I think we looked at on the 12th floor, that you took, and it is at page 17 of the control room report. So this is LFB *0004790, control room report. CRO Fox, this is the bottom of the page. We looked at this, I think, before. Takes a call from a female reporting a fire in Grenfell Tower. Do you remember we discussed that earlier on in your evidence?
We did.
And was asked for advice. We could see the summary of that call here. And at the end it says that CRO Fox states she will pass on the information to the crews. And that is information that there was smoke and fire in the neighbour's kitchen. Did you consider passing this information to the fireground?
Yes,
the detailed information.
I would have passed the information on to the fireground.
Do you know how you would have done that?
Can't remember exactly. Again, it would have been a service request, or it would have been a piece of paper, and we would have passed it to the command unit. But either way, we were passing as much information onto the fireground as we possibly could that night.
And I'm not sure at the moment we can see a record of that in the short incident log. But if there isn't, can you explain that?
If there was no record in the short incident log, it would have been done by paper.
Even that early?
The incident log is so long to look through.
Let me be certain that I'm not putting a false point to you. If you go to the short incident log, which is MET 000133830, and go please to page 19. Look please at the time mark of 01:40. We can see a message sent, or a service request made by AG, in fact, Angie Gotts. Persons trapped in flat on 12th floor, unable to leave. That's obviously not you, but can you explain why it was that Angie Gotts was passing that message? Or perhaps this was a duplicate call.
Andrew could have had a duplicate call, but I wouldn't. There was no reason why I wouldn't have passed the message.
Are you able to relate this call at 1:26 to this service request message at 1:40? Do you think?
No, I can't remember that call in particular.
It looks as if this was not necessarily a response to your call, but a call that Angie Gotts took. Is that right? Do you know?
I can't remember.
Okay. If in fact it wasn't you passing this information to the incident ground but Angie Gotts in response to another call, can you explain why you didn't pass the information you had about this flat to the incident ground?
I can't explain it because I can't remember the call.
Right. Ms. Fox, thank you very much. I have now come to the end of my questions. It remains for me only to thank you very much indeed for coming to the inquiry and assisting us with our investigations. I know it's not been easy for you to recall the events of that night, and I am extremely grateful to you for coming. So thank you very much. And I also add my thanks to the transcribers and to the trial director for his patience, all of their patience in sitting far later than I would have liked on a Friday evening, and to Stephen Walsh.
Thank you.
Well, I should thank you very much on behalf of the inquiry as a whole. I would imagine you've been standing around or sitting around for quite a long time waiting to give your evidence, haven't you, which is a disagreeable thing in itself, so I'm very sorry about that.
Thank you. It's no problem.
But it's very helpful to hear your account of these matters. It all goes to enable us to piece together the big picture. So we're very grateful to you for coming along.
You're welcome.
I'm sorry if it's been a disagreeable
It's no problem
exercise,
at all.
but
No problem. Thank you.
thank you very much
Thank you.
indeed.
Thank
All
you.
right?
Bye-bye.
Thank you. You're going to go with the ushers. That must be it for today, Mr. Lewis.
Mr. Chairman, it is, and I just want to say it's a personal thank you to you and to the transcribers and to the trial director for their patience. I meant
to
it.
me, but it's been a very long day for
been a long
everyone,
day.
so I'm grateful to all of you for your
Yes.
patience, the way you've listened so quietly to the evidence.
Yes.
And of course, I'm very grateful to the document manager and the trial director and the stenographers who always work on late without any complaints, and we're very grateful to them.
Can I also just, this is a competition, not a competition for thanks, but I just want to express my thanks to the LFB. When I said Stephen Walsh, I really meant him in his corporate capacity, for making these witnesses available to us, and I apologise for the rescheduling we've had to have, but it was important that we heard from them.
Yes, right. Well, I absolutely endorse that. Thank you very much. Right, thank you very much. Well, we'll break now. We resume on Monday at 10 o'clock, and we shall get back to the evidence of Dr. Lane.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.